From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew and alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosa Bianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, I think today we're going to get a little deep. We're going to have like an existential conversation. What is it all for? Why do we all wake up early, roll up our sleeves, try to save for our kids, 529 this, mutual fund that? Really, what is it all for? What are we trying to achieve? And to help us walk through that goal is Chris Miles, founder, CEO of Money Ripples. And Chris, what you've been able to pull off over the last couple of decades is phenomenal. So let's share with the audience what Money Ripples is and how you work with clients to try to overcome that existential crisis. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on today. Yeah, so you asked, what is Money Ripples, right? I mean, Money Ripples is really about helping you create that freedom and prosperity today. Kind of like the sign behind me says, live your life now, not tomorrow. It's about how do you have that passive income coming in that has enough money coming in that allows you to be able to be work optional. You work because you want to, not because you have to. And it's not just about getting rich and be able to have all that time with your loved ones, when they actually want to spend time with you. I have 8 kids, so I know what that's like when 6 of them are teenagers now. But it's not just that. It's about not just being rich and taking care of your own needs, living money worry free, but it's about actually living a life where you create a ripple effect in the lives of others. Because as you're blessed financially, you have a greater capacity to bless more lives. And that's really what we teach at Money Ripples with our financial education and consulting and things like that. Is really helping people actually create a real strategic game plan to get out of that crappy rat race where we are just working and waking up every day and just hoping that there's going to be an end in sight. And it just hasn't been happening for people.
Chris, oftentimes when people see something that is broken, they try to fix it. So tell us a little bit about your Genesis story. What was broken and how did you fix it vis-a-vis Money Ripples?
Yeah, growing up as a kid, my parents taught me great values, things like your word is your bond, work hard, follow your dreams, all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that they didn't teach me about was money. Other than there just wasn't enough of it, right? It was always about how there's a lack of money. We can't afford this. What do you think I am, made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, And even my dad, he worked in the automotive business and stuff. And, he had strokes and heart attacks by the time he was in his 40s from all the stress of the work. And he even told me, he would say, Chris, I'm going to work until I'm dead. I think my job will literally kill me. And that affected me as a kid, right? Because you don't want to hear that. And you definitely don't want to follow in your parents' footsteps. And so like every teenager, I wanted to do something different than my parents. And so I actually went to college. Your mom goes to college, right? And so went to college. And then while I was there, I wanted to become a business consultant, but I figured I should have real life business experience, not just get an MBA and then say, great, I got a degree, but I'm pointless. I'm useless because I don't know anything in the real world. So I left. I dropped out of college and I said, all right, let's find a business to start. And the first business that came up that intrigued me a little bit was being a financial advisor, not knowing it was so easy to become a financial advisor because all you have to do is not be a criminal and pass a test with 70% and you're in, right? And then just don't starve out of the business by, because you're on commission only and that kind of stuff. And so that's what I started doing. Loved being an entrepreneur. I actually stayed on that path, never went back to college. So, I'm a dropout for that reason. But the great thing is that several years in, as I'm getting more familiar in that business, get more confident and comfortable, my dad reaches out to me and says, Chris, when are you going to advise me? And I never thought he would ask me that because he's always very close to his chest. He was always holding his cards close to his chest, he would never tell us anything about how much money he had. And so I sat down with him, the same table he's telling me, about, spend nothing, save everything, that kind of stuff. He's the cheapest guy I ever knew growing up. And as I sat down with him, he said, okay, Chris, here's my situation. I've been stuffing money in my 401k. I'm debt free. I paid off the house and everything after just 18 years. And he's very proud of that. He's like, I'm 61 years old. I want to retire now. So I looked at his money and I said, here's the deal, Dad. If you want to retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's how long it's going to be before you run out of your money. And he said, all right, well, give me an answer. What else can I do? I said, I don't know, because I can try to do this different strategy here with the stock market or this or that, but I can't guarantee the stock market won't go down. And by the way, this was right after Y2K. It was in between Y2K and the Great Recession. So I'm glad I didn't try to force him into something else, because it was just, a few years later that the recession started, So I just said, I don't know. Like, I can't guarantee I can do anything better for you than what you've already done. And it bugged me really bad, because he was the reason I got into it in the first place. And for the guy that did everything that I've been teaching my clients for 4 years, and I even been living in my own life, to see that it didn't work for him, I realized there must be an issue. And just a few weeks later, I'm speaking with a friend of mine. I actually hired him to be a financial advisor, but then he quit to go do real estate investing. And he's telling me how much money he's making with his real estate investments and whatnot. And he finally just asked me, he said, Chris, how many of your clients are truly financially free where they don't worry about money? And he got me with that last part, because I had retired clients, doctors that are retired and whatnot, but they would still watch CNN. Of course, you watch CNN, you're always freaked out about the world just, coming to an end if you do that. But they're still freaking out about running out of money. I said, none. Okay, Chris, how about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these investments? And there's over 100 guys in my office, and some of them had been working there since the late 1970s. And yet they couldn't retire either, if I was really being honest. So I said, none. There's your problem, Chris. And at that point, I decided to take the Matrix red pill, right? And woke up to this whole other world that you could do in alternative investments, things like real estate, where, for example, if you have $100,000 and you're a financial advisor, you're going to tell people, at least if you're a financial advisor that's kept up in the last 20 years, you're going to tell people to pull out no more than 3% a year, right? Because the whole 4% rule, that got debunked already. So you're going to say no more than 3% a year. Well, that's $3,000 a year from 100 grand. You can't live on that crap. But on the flip side, like, I can have somebody put $100,000 into an investment, make 12% a year or 1% a month. Now they're making $12,000 a year or $1,000 a month instead of a couple $100 a month. And when I realized what was possible in my mind, my vision opened up, that's when I realized, man, I can't, I keep teaching what I'm teaching as a financial advisor and basically just put blinders on and just keep selling it because that's what my profession is. Or I take the latter, because I had an identity crisis, so to speak, or really an integrity crisis, where I said, I got to keep my integrity intact. And so I chose the latter. I said, I'm quitting. I'm out. I'll just be a mortgage broker, because mortgages were awesome in 2006. And I just did that. And of course, in the meantime, I started to learn about real estate investments, passive investing, and did some things so that later that year, when I was 28, almost 29 years old, I was able to retire myself. I had enough passive income coming in that was able to pay for my monthly expenses. And that blew my mind. I didn't even think that could be impossible, but it was. And so I had a choice. I kind of sat around wondering what to do with my life, because not many 28-year-old friends of mine were able to hang out with me in the middle of the day because they're working jobs. And eventually, 2007, I came out of retirement. I said, you know what? I'm getting pissed that there are people just like me that were financial advisors, or people that have been listening to these financial advisors that don't know better, that think that somehow it's going to work someday when it's been proven that it doesn't work. And so that's why I did what I did. So 2007, came out of retirement, started teaching people how to essentially get out of the rat race, just like Robert Kiyosaki teaches in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but actually how to do it, not just giving you a bunch of fluff like they do in those books.
So Chris, let's give everybody about 30 seconds to pause the podcast, fire their financial advisors, and then talk to Money Ripples. So you've got a young person, let's say it's you in 2005, 2006. How does Money Ripples start working with a young, ambitious entrepreneur?
Yeah, the best way to do it is, first and foremost, it depends on the stage you're at and how much money you have. If you're just getting started, that's why we have a lot of education about increasing your cash flow, right? And increasing cash flow isn't always about passive income. It's even about stopping money leaks. Because I get so many people, especially entrepreneurs, that will say, like, man, like, I'm making decent money, but where's it all going? Like, I feel like I'm just in my own rat race, right? And I've seen a lot of business owners. That's the problem, is that even business owners I know that make sometimes tens of millions of dollars a year in their business, still, if that business were to shut down today, they would be broke as everybody else, right? Like, they just don't have other streams of income coming in. And so first and foremost, we try to figure out where those money leaks are, get you profitable, not just in your business, but even at home. So you have extra money coming in, figure out where that money is. Two, we try to figure out like how to get your money out of prison. Because if you've noticed, financial advice is always about putting your money in prison. Pay equity into that house, right? Like pay the equity in that mortgage. And when you do that, of course, you can't get it back out unless you either sell off the property or you have to ask the bank for permission to get the money you just overpaid, right? So you're calling up the bank saying, well, can I get permission to get my money, please? Like your little teenager that's asking for the car keys, you can't do that, and you're locking away money in your crappy company 401k that those funds don't even make stock market returns and they have expensive fees. And so you never even make that much money, even if you get a match. But again, they lock it up and you can't touch it unless you either quit or get fired. It's a sham. It's really like one of the biggest scams out there right now. Some people even compare it to a Ponzi scheme because really you're just throwing money in. The government has all the control and you don't. And so we try to get people's money out of prison, like get that money back in their control. So like we talk about get lean, get liquid, and get out. Get lean, like I mentioned before, like getting profitable and having extra money in. Get liquid, which means get your money out of prison, and then get that money out working for you where it does generate passive income. And so we walk people through those steps.
Chris, let's focus on the lean part. There is this theory that you work hard, you want to play hard, right? You got to feed the ego a little bit, right? Because you work so hard and the ego drives your success. Not many of us have that discipline to be like some very wealthy investors that we know that are still driving their Buick from the 1970s, right? So where do you find that balance between having a nice quality of life and avoiding the 4 Lamborghinis?
Yeah. Well, and I just tell people like I'm not a big fan of living on rice and beans, as some people teach, right? That to me is just like a crappy life. Listen, here's the deal: is that there's really two perspectives about money that are in scarcity, and with scarcity, there'll never be freedom. There's a spender where it's easy come, easy go. They're always hustling to make money. They always get ripped on, right? But the more deceptive one is the saver. The saver is the one that's telling you to live on rice and beans. The saver is the one that's the financial advisor saying, hey, you should sacrifice your entire life right now and just pack it away. Pay off all that debt as fast as you can. And you can never pay off your debt fast enough. And you can never save enough money. Even if you save $1 million, you're like, that's not enough. Fidelity actually has 45 million clients. And of that 45 million, only 750,000 people have over $1 million in there. They're all pretty much baby boomers and Gen Xers, right? But here's the crazy thing. And I mentioned you can only live on 3%. That's 30,000 a year. That's not enough to live. That's why 35% of that 750,000, or about 1.5%, 35% of those think it'll take a miracle for them to retire. They don't even think it's like a possibility. They think it probably will never happen. And they have at least $1 million. That's more than the average. So it really means less than 1% of people actually think maybe have a chance to retire. That should be a clue, right? And so that saver mentality, that's what happens, because when you're in that scarcity mentality, you can never feel like you save enough, and you'll just keep saving. You won't turn off that faucet when you've been spending 50 years scrimping and saving away. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to live La Vida Loca in your retirement. You won't ever do that. You will still stay a cheap son of a gun that whole time. And so the better way is to be a steward of your money, right? A steward takes the best of the spender and saver and puts it into one. Because the spender, at least they're willing to use money, and money is meant to be used. Because the truth is, you come into this earth with nothing, you die with nothing. Everything in between is stewardship, right? So why in the heck are we trying to sacrifice and save all this money to then pass it on to somebody else, which is usually Uncle Sam, right? And then whatever's left gets to your kids. Instead, why don't we just actually try to be a wise steward of what we've got right now and focus on how to multiply it, grow it, make it work for us. And when you spend money, spend on things you love and enjoy. Shame, get rid of all that shame and crap like that, right? Like if you love Lamborghinis, if you're a car guy, do it. Like buy those freaking cars. If it brings you joy, do it. Like Marie Kondo says, what brings you joy? Do that. If it's, I'm not as much of a car guy. I drive a freaking Nissan. Like I can go and buy a Lamborghini right now. I just don't give a crap. Now, I like my house. Like I like a house with a view. So I have a nice house, a pretty backyard and stuff. And that's kind of my thing. But, like for me, I'm a pretty simple guy. Like I wear t-shirts and shorts all day long, so I don't give a crap about wearing Armani suits and I don't even have a nice watch. I have a Garmin watch because I'm a marathoner, right? So I don't even have the nice watch that every financial guy is supposed to have. I just don't give a crap because once you make millions, you're like, F you. Like, who cares? You know?
So, coincidentally, our three dads on this podcast are very, very similar. My dad was also a mechanic. We all have very, very similar, humble backgrounds.
Yeah.
Their definition of the American dream was very different than our, let's call it, enlightened definition. Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be in these shoes, right? So, like, I think it was Isaac Newton said, "I stood on the shoulder of giants." So,
Yeah.
what is given your very, very unique perspective of having gone through that upbringing, your education, and now you've been very, very successful? What is your American dream? Like, how would you define the American dream to someone that was either young or looking to immigrate into this country?
Yeah, it's different for every culture too, because I know it's even like Asians when they come in, they have a very interesting American dream that they're given, because their American dream is pretty much just save a lot of money, have a home, and just really like be as cheap as possible so that you can have all this money to live on, right? I was just talking to one of my friends the other day, like talking about the Asian community, because he's Asian himself, and he's like, yeah, I don't know where it comes from. Like, we almost come to this country and then we adopt it from other immigrants that are already here, and they just all teach the same thing. Like, just save everything you can, pay off that house, be debt free, especially because in Asia, debt free is a big deal because they don't have the freedoms that we have. Like, for example, we can have a mortgage, pay our payments, and they can't take that house away from us as long as we keep paying our payments, right? That's not true in all countries. Heck, even in Australia, they got 3 mortgages they put on, like you have to pay them in that order. You can't just like pay off one of them because it sucks at the interest rate. You have to pay off the one in order, even if it's a lower interest rate, right? I mean, we have such an amazing culture now in America, a way to create freedom. And so I think, depending on the generation you ask, because I know millennials and Zoomers have a different perspective than like boomers or Xers like myself. I'll say this is that for us that are older, our American dream is like just be able to be at a point where we can just say, I can call it quits, right? Even if you love your job, and this is true even for the younger generation, even if you love your job, you just want the option to be able to say, I don't have to go in today. Or the option to say, you know what, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and then I'll come back to the work I love again. Like that kind of freedom. Even guys who are business owners, like I have a lot of dental clients, guys are dentists and women as well. And their big thing is like, if I can just take off 2 weeks and not feel guilty about it, that would feel like freedom to me. So the American dream I know is different for everybody, but ultimately it always comes down to freedom, options, choices, right? I mean, we're all built on freedom, right? That's what Americans are all about. It's about freedom and expressing ourselves how we want to live, even if it's living your own purpose. Is it having a passion project that you do? Is it a humanitarian thing that you're doing? Really, that is what the American dream is going beyond just beyond just saying, I can pay my bills, right? That's like the basic American dream for some people. Is like, if I can just pay my bills and not worry about it, that's freedom. But I think for a lot of people, it's much more than that. It's about having fulfillment, be able to express yourself in the way that you want to be. And like I say, it's about doing what you love, spending time with those that you love.
I'm actually very opposite of the Dave Ramsey and the old school thinking that you were speaking about. I'm extremely aggressive. My wife is a little bit more conservative, but she's come around over the years, right? We don't let money just build up inside of a cash account, right? If we had done that over the last few years, we've lost a shitload of money with the rate of inflation, with the way that it's going, right? Now, it sounds very easy to do. Just go out and passive invest. First of all, I don't believe there's such thing as a passive investment, right? You still got to do due diligence. You got to stay on top of stuff, but it's a better type of investment, right? So you have some strategies for the audience that they could actually start thinking about to do this and put things in place?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the education piece, I'll tell you, the mindset is the hardest part for my clients, not the strategy. The strategy is actually pretty easy. It's pretty simple. But the mindset shift to go against the grain, to go against the status quo and say, listen, I know that everybody in my dog, in fact, my dog's a financial genius somehow, but everybody, my dog, my neighbors, my brother-in-law, whoever, right? That guy that took the economics class for 1 semester in college thinks he's a genius. Those people keep saying, no, you got to keep doing what Dave Ramsey says, stuff that money in those dumb mutual funds that make nothing and they're high risk. And then of course, pay off your debt, and then your life's going to be free somehow. And to challenge that and to say, no, 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 that's not what I'm going to do. I want something different. I want something that's proven to work, not something that's been almost like a guaranteed failure, right? And so once you get past that mindset, and even get past the mindset, like I talked about, like paying off your house. I did have a client, he actually just emailed me yesterday. He's Asian as well. So he was very much stuck in that I got to pay off my mortgages. He had a rental property and he had his own mortgage. And he was stuck on, well, my goal is with my rental property, it was in California, it made him $200 a month. So he's like, but if I just spend the next 6 years paying that thing down, then I'll have $2,400 a month coming in because I won't have a mortgage payment other than, you still have tax and insurance, right? Well, it took a couple of years because it was hard to shift that perspective. I said, listen, like you've got 600,000 of equity in this property. That's 600,000. Even if it made 10% in some of these investments, which are kind of like baseline returns for the investments we talk about, even if you made 10%, that's 60,000 a year, 5,000 a month versus 200 a month. And heck, even if you paid off your mortgage in 6 years, it would still be like 2,400 a month. It's still less than this 5,000 a month you can make right now. And it took a few years before he finally just said, all right, I think I see it now. He did it. He just told me, he's like, I just bought my sixth property. Again, not managed by him. He has a property manager out in those areas, so he's hands off. But like you said, you still have stewardship over it. You still have to manage the property manager, right? But he just got a sixth rental property out there, and he's like, holy cow, I'm at $8,500 a month now. So when he was hoping and praying, and then actually the 6-year mark is going to be in a couple years, he was hoping and praying that he would hit $2,400 a month. But by doing that little shift, he went from what would have been $2,400 a month in 2 years to now $8,500 a month today. And he's like, man, he's like, I keep going. He's like, I'm already pretty much paying my bills with this money, but I want to keep going. I want to get this thing up to like 25,000 a month and then say, decide what I want to do. Cause he loves being a chiropractor. He loves doing what he loves.
What did he do exactly? Right. You said he had one rental property. Rather than paying down the property, you went and purchased other rental properties?
Sell it. I told him, sell it.
He sold.
Yeah.
The
I was like, this thing, I mean, and by the way, anytime I get people in the Western half of the United States, especially on the West Coast, they're like, I got a rental property. I'm like, yeah, you should probably sell that. We haven't seen the numbers yet. I already know the rents suck. They're horrible. Not to mention they're horrible states own properties in because they're not landlord friendly. Oregon, for example, you can have squatters. If your house is empty, squatters can legally live in your house and you can't kick them out. Like that's how bad it is out there. So I told him, like, listen, sell off that house, take the equity. You can tax-free transfer it into other properties, move it that direction. And so it took him a few years, but then he finally did it just a few years ago. And that's why he's seeing so much income now.
So he shifted from one rental property, did a 1031 exchange into other rental properties?
Exactly. Yep. So he did that. And then there's other strategies we mentioned to him as well. Like there's things like you can be a money lender. You can basically be like the bank, lend your money to real estate investors if you don't want to be the one that's owning a property. Because some of our clients, and that's the thing, everybody has their own unique recipe or flavor of what they want their investments to be like. Some are like, hey, I think having rentals are great. I like real tangible property. I can see, touch, taste, feel. Others are like, I don't give a crap. I just want to have my money work for me. And they might lend their money out at 10, 12+% a year to a real estate investor that is doing those kind of things because the investor knows he can make way more than that money that they're borrowing from you. So you can get paid as a lender. You can get also, put your money in and pool your money with other investors called a syndication where you can go and buy an apartment complex. Not a great thing right now. I suggest waiting a year or two for that one to turn around a little bit. But there's self-storage. There's things like self-storage units. You can go into that partnership as well. There's even partnerships like into car washes you can go into, or even oil and gas. Like right now, that's been one of our darlings that our clients are all doing, myself included, where there's companies we're investing with where they buy the land, lease it to the oil companies because oil companies don't want to own land. They just want to drill on it. Lease it to those oil companies. So they pay you rent for that land and they pay you a cut of the royalties as well. So you kind of double dip on it. So like, for example, last year, I only got paid 8% in that first year of one of those investments. But on another project that just started the month after mine, they got paid 35% last year because they had a lot more profit and more drilling going on. Mine's only got 25% of the drilling happening. They've got all these wells that they haven't started pumping out of yet because they don't need to. So
some of those investments actually allow you to write off the initial investment.
Yeah, when it's called working capital, where they actually do a lot of the drilling stuff. These ones aren't those. These ones they've already done that work. So there's no
Okay.
guesswork anymore. Because the problem is with those where you get the tax write-off, the big write-off at least. The problem with that is that there's a lot of speculation. You could strike it rich or you can go broke, right? So we tend to like more safe, stable, predictable type of investments. And so these ones, you get a little bit of a tax benefit, but not the big one that a lot of people get where they get 100% or 80% of their money
Yeah, it's
written off. It's
100%
like
write-off.
15%.
So these are existing wells then that have actually proven to have oil inside of them. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Chris, when we
I got
heard,
another partnership that I do too. That's raw land, where we buy raw land at wholesale, turn around, retail it to people, but then we sell it to them on terms, meaning like it's like a mortgage, right? You might be like a 5-year or a 10-year loan that you sell it to them where they pay you a couple $100 a month on that land. But I mean, I've had $250,000 invested in that in the last year and a half, and now it's paying me currently $7,500 a month. So I mean, there's just so many different ways you can make money way better than if I took $250,000, put it in a mutual fund, and I'm saying, well, if I pull out 3%, that's $7,500 a year. Well, I'm making $7,500 a month. It's just so much better, and it's actually backed by real assets. There's a real tangible property there versus stocks and mutual funds that aren't. I was there. I was a financial advisor when Enron went down. One of the first people I went to call as a referral from one of my clients worked at Enron, and he had just lost millions of dollars in his company stock. And he was pissed. He's like, I don't want to talk to anybody about money. I thought I had millions of dollars. I thought I had my retirement set, and now I'm broke like everybody else and I'm unemployed. So see you later. Like I've seen that stuff, like it's such a miserable kind of existence when you have no clue. You don't really feel like you have any control. And when you don't feel like you have control, you can never have freedom.
100%. You're preaching to the choir. That's why me and Luigi actually do almost every investment that you have to diversify out from our core businesses, right? I was right there alongside you in 2008 when you had people that worked at Lehman Brothers and Merrill Lynch for years, and they had their life savings in company stock that was vested, and they never diversified out from that. That's a big issue for a lot of people. And a lot of people they do that because they think they have the inside track on these corporations. There's no such thing. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I've seen it happen 2 to 3 times in my life. I'm sure you guys have too. But that's one thing. If you have and you work for a corporation and you have your income and your net worth tied to that corporation, that's a big no-no in my book.
Totally agree.
Chris, when we heard you describing stewardship earlier, I can't help but think of a wholesome religiosity that was touching your financial philosophy. I mean, how much do you attribute your approach and your success to a little bit of spirituality?
Oh, tons. Absolutely tons. I mean, I think a lot of times our spirituality, often you can find your why within that, right? We all have our own reason or purpose. I think we're on this planet for a reason, like whatever that reason is. I think we all have our own individual purpose to be here. Even if you don't believe in God or anything like that, like I do, I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think that the universe creates accidents. I think we're here for a reason, and that there's a purpose that we can actually leave this planet better off than when we came to it because we existed, because we're there. I think that's a big reason. That's why Money Ripples is called Money Ripples, is because, I've seen so many hundreds of lives been benefited where, I mean, like average person's like finding like $35,000 a year in just the first year alone, right? And that they're either freeing up in cash flow and or creating a passive income. And that freedom, that ability to let them breathe, it gets them to look outside of themselves. It gets them to be more in that steward place versus just so narrowly focused and really, it seems selfish, but it's really more just self-absorbed in their own lives because they're just trying to survive. To get out of that survival mode and get to a place where now you can open up your eyes and look around you a little bit and realize, hey, there's people I can actually help and serve with my talents, my gifts. Yeah, it can be my money too, but I know from my personal experience, it's what we are able to give of ourselves that makes a much bigger impact in people's lives than just giving of money, although that doesn't hurt either.
Chris, thank you so much for being here. We want to be respectful of your time. Can you tell everybody where they can reach out and get in touch with you and find out more about Money Ripples?
Yeah, you can go to moneyripples.com. You can visit us there, or you can also find us on YouTube. We got a podcast called the Money Ripples Podcast. You can find our Money Ripples channel there as well.
Chris, Thank you so much for being here. I have one question before I let you run.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about different types of investments, right? Everything from traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds to alternative investments. Now, that the word alternative is generally scary to people, but it could be private money lending, like you said, oil and gas wells, revenue-based financing, financing businesses like me and Luigi do. So we have a couple ones that we really love. But what's your favorite alternative investment?
I would say this. In general, even though I'm not doing as much of it right now because of how the interest rates are, usually I love having property, like having real tangible property. That's generally been my favorite because I like having control. I like knowing that I can manipulate and make the numbers work and pay me what I want to be paid. But I'll say right now, for the most part, it's not those kind of properties I'm buying right now. For the most part, I'm doing more lending and helping other real estate investors by lending them money and get paid returns on that. I do love that partnership I have with that raw land. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of fun. So I love that one a lot.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much. Everybody, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.